excited this is the Christmas special of the Farm Ed podcast, and we're really excited to have a very special guest for our Christmas special, who is Jim Pearse, who was the farmer at Honeydale Farm with his wife Wendy for many years before Ian and Celene took it over, and your parents and grandparents also farmed on this land. But it was known as Honeydale, wasn't it, first of all, because of one particular field. Can you tell us about that? Because that's a really interesting story.
When we moved up here, because the original farm was called Coldstone Farm, there's still Coldstone House down in Ascot, where the farmhouse was. And then we came up here, because it hadn't got a farm name then, and my parents decided, well, Honeydale's the biggest field, and it's a nice name. We call it Honeydale, and it's been going ever since.
And it was the colour of the soil, wasn't it? It was a nice sort of clay. Yeah.
If you go back to it goes back to Honeydale, goes right back into the Middle Ages, really, because when it was Honeydale Furlong. And it was called Honeydale then because of the sticky yellow clay.
I love that. So, nothing to do with bees at all.
No, it's a shame, really. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So tell me about your sort of childhood on the farm. If we go back then, what are your memories of Honeydale Farm when you were a child?
Oh, going around with the machines when my father was doing any work, I was there with him, and if I couldn't get on and ride, then I'd walk behind them. I went round and round these fields with the old haymaking machines and things.
So what were they? What sort of machines? Obviously, you're not talking big combines here, are we? We're talking.
No.
What were they like?
Well, the mower. I kept well out of the way of that. The mower, and then the haymaking, tedding machines, and side rakes, hay turners, that sort of thing. And then it got to when the hay was made, we picked it up loose with a thing called a hay loader, which pulled along behind the wagon, and that lifted the hay up, put it on the wagon, and my father used to load it on there while grandfather was driving. And then when grandfather was doing the milking one day, Dad said, see if you can drive the tractor, Jim. And I was just heavy enough for my foot to push the clutch down. So that was when I started driving the tractor.
Oh, wow. How old were you then?
6 years old.
6 years old, my goodness, that's amazing. And, so what was the farm? So it had arable crops, it had some...
Yeah, it's similar to what it is now. The top 4 fields here were arable, and then the actual Honeydale field, that was corn as long when I could first remember it, but it had been a grass field, and then they had to plough it up in the wartime to grow more food because there was such a national shortage, and so we put it back down to grass again in the 1960s.
Okay, and you had dairy cows?
Yeah. We always had dairy cows down in Ascot, and my grandfather used to work he used to milk them by hand, and they had a milk round in the village, and it was always interesting to me before I went to school, all these milk bottle tops. I used to play about with them before I put them in the bottles. Oh,
so you were quite happy? You liked being on the farm, and you looked forward to being a farmer?
Yeah, I never thought of anything else. As soon as I could get home from school, I was out and amongst it if the weather was any good, you know.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, that's amazing.
I was very lucky because I had free access to all the tools and saws and axes and everything. They never stopped me having a go with them.
Oh, really? So what crops were you growing? You were growing root crops, double turnips, weren't you?
No, in those days there were some root crops. We grew kale for the cows and mangels and a few potatoes. They were growing more potatoes as long ago as I can remember, but perhaps that was because of the war or something. But mangels were a lot of work to them. You had to pull them up by hand, and then you had to cover them up all through the winter time so they didn't get frosted. If they had a touch of frost, they all went rotten. But kale, you cut that with a long-handled hook and put it on the loads and took it down to the cows and A lot of people were doing that at that time. And then you kept the mangles till after Christmas and later on, you know, and you had to get them all out again and clean them and grind them up. And on the cows, they thought they were marvellous. They were a bit sweet and juicy, and they used to chomp them up, and they always did really quite well on the mangles. Although people said, oh, you don't want to feed those, they're 90% water. But it was good water.
Yeah, interesting.
They had shiny coats and that, you know.
They did well on them.
Yeah. Good for milking.
Yeah. So what? Just describe to me your sort of day on the farm. What was it? What happened on an average sort of day?
Yeah. It varied quite a lot.
Yeah. Remember when you were older, when you were farming? Was it what time did you?
Yeah. When we were farming after we came up here. Yeah. It's I used to get up about 6 o'clock or so, but we hadn't got so many cows to start with, and then my father. He was quite poorly in the 1960s, and then he retired in 1974, and we sort of took it on, the tendency and that, and then I started having more cows, and so it was a longer day then. And then unfortunately the milk tanker, originally it used to go up onto the milk churn lorry, and we had to take the churns up to the top every day in the old Morris 8 car. But then when it got to bulk milk and that, then this lorry driver very soon he had to go to Chadlington, and then he came here, and he used to get here at 7:15 in the morning. So that meant I had to get up to about 5 o'clock, and especially in the springtime when the cows were out in the field. They weren't keen to come in. In the winter time when they were in the yard, they come hurrying into the shed to have their cake and hay and that. But so when they were out in the field in the springtime, they just laid down chewing their cuds. They didn't want to come in. So it meant you got to go and get them earlier, and that took a lot of time.
Yeah.
I still dream about them now. Waiting for the, trying to get them in on a foggy morning or something, and then the lorry's going to come down any minute, and it's going to be late, and all sorts of things, and then I wake up.
So you farmed it so you took on the tenancy in 1974, and then obviously you sold it to Ian in 2013, so that's 40 years that you farmed Honeydale. Amazing. So you called it Honeydale, didn't you? So it was the fields as they are now.
Yeah.
And tell me about where you lived, because you lived in a caravan for a while, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, when we first came up here, my parents, we had to live in a caravan then because there was nothing here. There was only the old cattle sheds that are still there, and so it was just the empty land, and just after the wartime I had to get a permit to build the house, and that took a while. But up till then we were in the caravan for 18 months, and then we got into the house. But then I had more experience of living in a caravan when we were married. We had this residential caravan. It was a good one, and it was well advanced from the old original one. We got central heating and everything, but it was just before it was in 1973, and those hot years, 75 and 76, as soon as the sun rose in the morning, the temperature shot up to about 90 in there, and it stayed there all day.
Wow. So is it a Christmas special? It's all winter. Yeah. Tell me about, because winters, I know you got snowed in quite a lot, didn't you?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, 63 was the time, the worst time really. Well, fortunately that was before we had too many cows when Dad was doing it, and he tapped on my bedroom door in the morning and said, "Time to get up, Jim, it's a blizzard this morning." And it was. We got outside, and we couldn't open the gate to let the cows in. They were out in the field at that time. But so we had to lift the hinges off and open it, and it stopped like that for about a month.
Oh, really?
Then the snow kept on all day, and we were well and truly snowed in. The only way we could get out was with the tractor. And we thought, well, it'll thaw, you know, it's not worth trying to that big road up there. It was piled up because the road sort of sunk down in a bit, and then it just piled up to the top of the wall that ran all the way up the side, so it was about 4 foot deep. And then it settled down, and we left it, and it just got some more and more solid. And eventually we had to dig it out, and it took us a month to get to the top.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then it was so cold that the lumps of snow we took out and chucked over the wall and in the field and that, they were still there at Easter time.
Wow.
It was amazing. But trouble was, in those days, four-end loaders hadn't been invented. Nowadays, they just take a forklift or something and with a shovel on the front, and the job's done. But in those days, even the main roads had to be dug out by hand. And this road to Chippy was only half the width for a long, long time. It seemed amazing when it really got cleared.
Wow, it's really hard to imagine now, isn't it? Because if people are snowed in for a couple of days, they really sort of struggle with it, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. But then it was just impossible, you know. People had to stop where they were and walk.
Wow, that's because it's quite. I mean, it's quite. It's a long walk. I mean, you've got Ascot and Chipping Norton. Sort of, they're not. You know, they're a good old half an hour away, aren't they? You've got no sort of close neighbours here, really.
Yeah. First time I can remember, it was down in Ascot in 1947, when the Ascot people dug all the way up, halfway up to Leafield, and Leafield people dug halfway down, and because that's where our bread used to come from in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really
then we had some bad goes in the 1980s. It was several times quite a deep snow and really, really cold. And the water came from along the field where the spring is now. We used to have our water from there, and somewhere between there and the tanks in the barn, it got froze, and so we hadn't got any water.
So no mains water. You were just using
no,
the
yeah,
spring.
that was on the farm with the pump. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It got as far as house, my parents' house, just out here, but it didn't get any further. The other was all frozen up, and so the cows were in the yard, and they were drinking no end. They always drink a lot more in frosty weather, and the trough was there, but as soon as you got it filled up, they emptied it, and the only water we got was in the old well that was just over the fence, and the only way you could get water out of there was by dipping a bucket in on the end of a rope. And,
oh my goodness.
I hadn't got time to do it, doing the milking, so Wendy had to do that.
Poor Wendy.
It was a shocking job. I don't know how she did it. And the water down in the well, it was so much warmer than the air. The air was so cold going in down there, you couldn't see at the bottom or anything. It was just full of steam. And then when the cord always got wet, and more times you put it in and pulled it out, it got wetter and wetter, and it was about 2 inches thick with ice all the way up this cord. And Wendy still had to dig it out.
Poor Wendy, she got the worst jobs,
that was
didn't she?
the only way the cows could have the water.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was amazing. It lasted about a week, I think, really bad, and then all at once, one afternoon, it just got warmer, and
thawed.
Very soon thawed out again. But trouble was, we hadn't got any water down in our bungalow where we were, so I had to, after I'd done the milk, I had to go in the house and fill up 2 3-gallon buckets, old milking buckets, and carry it all the way down there to the bungalow and tip it in the tank.
It sounds such hard work.
The trouble was, everything took so long, and doing the milking, and that was such a job. And so I got, as I was instead of milking them twice a day, because having to take them. The other thing was we had to put the milk in a bulk tank, out of the bulk tank in the dairy, and take it up there in the morning, and then after the lorry had collected it on the main road, then come back down and clean it and all that. And everything took so long, I decided, well, I'll milk the cows 3 times in 2 days instead of every day, you know, instead of twice a day.
Yeah.
So and then they.
So you're milking them all on your own?
Pardon?
You were just there was just the two of you running the farm. You had no help.
No. And then, but that meant one day I was doing it in the middle of the day, and then the next day I was doing it in the morning and late at night, and I was out there at midnight doing all that.
Wow. That's amazing. What about, do you have electricity and heating? What do you do about? What do you do for that? You had.
Yeah, we had got electricity and heating. Yeah, that stayed on.
That stayed on all right. Didn't get cut off with that.
Yeah.
That's one blessing at least.
Yeah, that's right.
You had candlelight and.
In 1963, we hadn't got electricity then. We'd only got a generator that was when my parents were here, you know, that did go, but we'd only had that since 1961. Before that, it was all paraffin lamps and candles, you know. So.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Well, it was it sounds very beautiful, but I'm sure it was hard work.
Yeah, looking back, I can't imagine how we did it without burning the place down, because I used to walk about with these lighted candles and that, and used to do the milk with an old paraffin lamp hanging up in the.
Wow.
And before we had the electricity, when we first had the generator, at least I could have a couple of milking units. Otherwise, before that, it was all hand milking. So.
How long were you? When did you get milking units in then? Do you know when that was? How was that?
Yeah, it was when just how it happened. But Dad was in hospital at that time when he was poorly in late 1960s. So 1968, he had heart trouble. Had to go into hospital for 5 weeks, and that's when I got it all set up.
That was handy.
It was just a coincidence, really.
Yeah, you got a bit of help.
I talked to him about it in the hospital. He said, "Well, you do what you think is best." So I said, "Right, we'll have him."
That was nice of him. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Oh. So, when did you? What's your sort of fondest memories of farming? What did you love most about farming?
Oh, riding on the old binder where we were cutting the corn into the sheaves. It's a fantastic job. You could see all over the field, you could see all the views all the way around, and it was just sort of chugging along and cutting the corn. It went onto the canvas carried it up into the top of the machine, and it came out all nice and straight. Then the knotter turned over, and you've got a row of sheaves all coming out all nice and tidy. And it was a beautiful job to ride on it and see it all working, and that, as long as it kept going okay, which it usually did, and that was my favourite job. But it ended 50 years ago, I suppose, because then it was the thing was, if you cut it with a binder, it meant you had to collect it all up on the wagons and take it and build it into a rick, and then the thrashing machine came round and had to thrash it, and it took quite a few people, and it got to the stage in the early 1960s when nobody wanted to do it.
Oh.
This was the usual thing.
Yeah.
Years ago, the old age pensioners and retired people, they were only too glad to help, but it's like it was always a dusty job and hard work and that, so we had to do the same as everybody else and start having the combine, and then somebody else had all the fun.
Oh, that's nice you remember it such fond memories of.
Yeah, it's like last week to me.
Yeah. Oh, and what was the worst bit? What was the kind of most frustrating or challenging bit about the way that you used to farm?
I think when the BSE came out, because it was such a silly thing. I'm sure it was nothing to do with cattle anyway, but they kept showing this cow slipping down, and anybody can make a cow slip down. You put it on a concrete with wet and that. But the trouble was, we had to. They stopped having them when they were over to 30 months old, 2.5 years. You had to keep them until they were ready to take them away and put them in a furnace. And the fields hadn't got all that much grass in. They just kept getting shorter and shorter. Then they started eating the hedges. And then I had to go around every day with a barbed wire and go along the top of the hedges because they hit the top of the hedges, and they'd soon have been going over into the neighbours' fields. So
what about the actual work when you were, what was the most frustrating thing about the actual job that you had to do? What was the hardest bit of your job, would you say? Nothing. Nothing. You loved all of it.
I enjoyed everything. There was whatever you were doing. I think the stone picking up, because they used to clear the big stones off the fields every year. I did one every. There was 4 fields there. I did one every year, and because they gradually come up, and there's big stones clutter up the machines and do damage and that. And after you'd had several days at that, it got a bit tiring.
And that's the only thing. Wow. So you've really loved your whole life as a farmer.
Oh yeah. Because there's so many jobs. There's everything you can think of. You need to know a bit about most things, and it comes round with the seasons and. I enjoyed everything.
Well, it's lovely because where you live now, you can keep an eye on what we're doing, can't you, at the farm here? You can still see it, and you come up regularly and have a wander around and check out what's going on.
It's a whole new chapter to my life coming up here.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's like coming to see everything going on, basically in the same way, but sort of a new family with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really nice for you to see. If you feel like you're still sort of part of it, and
I was so fortunate because it could have gone anywhere. Anybody could have come here, and then they could have just shut the gates and said, right, that's it. We don't want you here anymore.
Oh. I mean, I remember you came last summer and you did that amazing demonstration of making the ricks, didn't you?
Cutting the corn into the sheaves.
Sheaves. Yeah, that was just. Really stunning. Is that something you did all the time when you were younger then?
It was when I was about 10 or 11, I think. There was a bad summer, and the wheat was so long then, it used to grow about 5 foot long, tall, and anywhere where it was thick it used to go down, and then my father and grandfather were going round with the faggot hooks doing some of it to rescue it, because the binder wouldn't cut it then, and because it was too near the ground, so they were doing it like that, and then I wanted to have a go, and Dad showed me how to do it, and then
it was a wonderful demonstration. It's on our Instagram if anyone wants to have a look at it. We filmed you doing it, didn't we? And it's on.
Oh yeah, good.
It's on there. It was really good. So I mean, what are the sort of, obviously you've seen so many changes in farming over the years. Do you think most things have been good, or are there certain things that you miss about, that you think it's sort of a shame that we've lost certain old ways, or what are your sort of observations on how farming's changed?
Well, it's all progress and modernisation, but the trouble is now, I think there's so few people that are employed. There's sort of 3 or 4 people if it's an arable farm, they can run a big farm really with just big machinery, as long as it all keeps working all right, they're all right. But when we first came here, there was if you look from east round to west, you'd see about 20 farms, and everybody at time to time would be out there working on their fields, and now there's only 5. And you hardly ever see anybody work, and they do it so fast when they do, and it's my way of doing it, mostly by hand, but you could enjoy doing now. It's a push-button job.
On the farm,
So that's all gone really. But like market gardening or livestock farming, that's still basically the principles are the same. Yeah.
Well, obviously the whole principle of farm ed, we obviously, and Honeydale now is a mixed farm, isn't it? We've got vegetables, and we've got cows, and we've got all sorts of stuff, different crops, and there's a bit of arable and going on. So it's that sort of almost going back to the, you recognise that as a kind of farming system, the mixed farming system that you you knew.
Yeah, basically, the principles of it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I remember you saying to Ian about how important how you also. I know Ian also talks about the soil being really, really important, and that was something that you liked, sort of seeing good soil, didn't you? When you were, I remember you saying that to him.
Yeah.
The soil was really important to you.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the soil. Yeah, when I was a little kid, too small to come up here on my own, I used to play in the garden. Grandfather showed me how to put a little toy wheelbarrow against a tennis marker, and I could turn the wheels round and dribble the soil on it, and then it was coming out in different areas like like a thrashing machine, and that I played with that all day long.
Oh, that's like being on the beach, but in the Cotswolds.
Yeah, that's it. But it was all basic part of the farming.
Soil, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's been so lovely talking to you, Jim. Thank you so much. And it's so lovely that you keep coming back to check on what we're doing, and you're still very much a part of the life of Honeydale Farm. So it's been really lovely to chat to you, and Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you and all the staff at Farm Ed.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers.